everybody, and welcome along to a brand new video today where the classic Doctor Who reviews are continuing, and today I'm taking a look back at the third Jon Pertwee story in season 7, his first season as the Doctor. It's The Ambassadors of Death. So yes, this is an absolute cracker of a story, a proper corker. It's Doctor Who meets James Bond meets sci-fi, classic sci-fi movie. It's just brilliant. Honestly, I think it's probably one of my favourite Doctor Who stories I've watched in a long time. I just enjoyed it so much watching it again. So much intrigue and mystery as to who's sort of behind it. Are the aliens the villains? Are the humans the villains? And just trying to find out everything's going on, filled with amazing action scenes. Like, you've got a blooming helicopter, massive shootouts, smoke bombs. It's just absolutely bonkers, the amount of crazy, brilliant action we've got throughout this story. Then going up in a rocket up into space, meeting these mysterious aliens. It just keeps on going and keeps on giving new ideas. It really feels absolutely brilliant. So yes, obviously the premise of this story is the sort of search for some missing astronauts who have been sent up to Mars and had disappeared in their spaceship. And then another one goes up to try and save them and then disappears as well. And what on earth is going on? There's mysterious alien sounds, and then the spaceship comes back down to Earth, but there's nothing in there, and there's these mysterious astronauts. Well, who are they really? Are they the originals? And so it sets up lots of brilliant sort of intrigue and mystery straight from the off. I'm always a big one for sort of space travel and anything relating to kind of going into space and rockets and seeing different planets and just in space and stuff. And so that's straight up my avenue with this sort of a story where we're seeing a Mars probe and a sort of, a little sort of spaceship thing going up into space shuttle, going up into space is always really exciting. And seeing the Doctor do that as well later in the story is fantastic. But as I say, this story is also probably famous for almost the action scenes that we see throughout, particularly in the earlier episodes. In episode 1, when you have a massive shootout between UNIT and all these sort of bandit people who are working for the bad guys throughout this story. It does feel like the UNIT soldiers aren't really particularly great soldiers. It does feel like they're mostly just getting shot. Or getting punched in the face or whatever, and not really succeeding very much. But it does make for a brilliant scene. There's a brilliant shot of the Brigadier. He sort of just fires 3 shots out of his gun, which seem to take out 3 people, supposedly, at least, which is just brilliant and a proper sort of badass Brigadier moment that I feel like we don't get enough of sometimes in Doctor Who. That he very much just becomes the military figurehead rather than somebody who's actually able to kind of shoot people and get involved in the action and fighting the people. So that's always great to see when we get to see it like we did early on in this story. And then in episode 3, the other amazing action scene when the shuttle has been sort of crashed down on Earth, and then it's being taken on a massive truck back to the space center and where UNIT are, and then obviously gets hijacked by some blokes in a helicopter, including General Carrington. And it's just brilliant when you've got a helicopter flying down low. They're dropping massive smoke bombs of different colours all over the place. People on motorbikes falling off. These sort of weird guns that the bad guys have got as well. It's just so exciting and so sort of dramatic and action-packed and thrilling and really engages you. And that's what I love about a lot of this era of Doctor Who, is so sort of action-orientated in the way things are done. I think this story is almost the epitome of that. It's showing it so brilliantly and excitingly. Obviously, you have the interesting character of General Carrington, who is formerly an astronaut who's gone up to on a previous sort of Mars probe up to wherever they're looking for in space, and has encountered what turn out to be aliens in the past, and is therefore sort of completely set against them. His opinion, he's completely sort of, I think, kind of fear-struck and completely set in his opinion and his idea that if they are aliens, they are evil, they must be destroyed. That is the only option. It's my moral duty to destroy them because I have to save the humans and save the human race, and they are evil, they are bad, and there's nothing that you can sort of tell him or do to him to make him think that any other opinion. And so that sort of whole story, as we become more and more understanding, when sort of early in the story, we don't know him as General Carrington at this point. He's just some dodgy looking bloke who's involved with all the bad guys, and then suddenly he turns up in military uniform and is a really important general. That's a great little twist there. And that he's working with the Minister Quinlan, who's quite important as well in trying to keep the Doctor off the scent. Which is just all this sort of political intrigue almost that you've got there with these different sort of high-ranking officials who are all actually behind the scenes, behind the plot to destroy these aliens ultimately and sort of use them for various different purposes. You've also got the rather random Reagan, the sort of rogue, the hitman essentially, who's been hired to kind of kill people where required, take the astronauts and use them for his own purposes as well. He decides, I'm going to go and steal some stuff. Well, sort of to some degree guided by General Carrington, who needs to get the isotopes to keep them alive. But then obviously Reagan wants to go and use them for his own purposes, go and rob banks and whatever, and steal lots of money and get really, really rich. So he's your classic sort of one-dimensional, just a pure villain who's just out there to kill people. Will take whatever orders he needs, but also suits his own purposes to just kill people and get the way he wants. It feels like a proper classic Doctor Who sort of stereotype character in there, which is it's sort of fun in places. He has some good moments with the Doctor and with Liz and taking the astronauts around and everything. That's all quite interesting, exciting. I think one of the things that I noted with this story, whereas with Doctor Who and the Silurians, it's also a 7-part story, but it was more obvious that there was a bit of padding out in it. Not, as I said in the last video, I did not think it was bad padding, introducing this sort of virus that basically just stretches out another 2 episodes. But I felt like in this story there wasn't really so much of that. It felt very much like everything had a purpose, everything was interconnected throughout this story, rather than sort of going off at a bit of a tangent so much. It was all very focused around what are these aliens, who are these aliens, where have they come from, where are the real astronauts, who actually is behind all the plots, and what is the real plot. And then when we get that sort of reveal, I think it's in episode 6, that when the Doctor goes up and gets sort of captured by the alien spaceship, obviously we only ever know them as the aliens, or the ambassadors as these aliens are called. We never actually find out a name of the race of people that these are. We don't really know anything about them apart from the dude in the spaceship seems to lurk behind some dodgy looking CSO blinds with a load of looked like bandages or something all over his body, but it was a little bit hard to tell. He's got a proper classic creepy alien voice, which is quite cool as well, which you hear a little bit of the astronauts down on Earth as well when they get the voice sort of recognition system working. And so it is quite a sort of satisfying moment, I find, when in episode 6 we do finally find out, or sort of see this alien spaceship, see who the aliens are a bit more of, and find out what the real plan and everything is behind it. It sort of feels like it's been building for such a long time throughout this story as to just what is really going on. Who are these aliens? Why are they here? What is actually happening? And then when you get that moment of realization that the aliens aren't there to harm them, they are ambassadors for this race that the aliens want back, and that they've been stolen by the humans, by General Carrington and among other people. So I think that's really, really just a really sort of satisfying moment there, I found personally watching it. And then obviously kind of stopping the Doctor for another episode, being able to tell anybody, just to get the story going a little bit longer, until sort of right near the end, where the Doctor finally is able to get involved and get things all sorted out and realise, stop the broadcast that General Carrington was going to make and just save the day. One thing I do really like in this story is the music used throughout it, particularly the music for the sort of theme for the ambassadors. This really kind of, very alien and sci-fi sounding sort of noise that they've created that's very sort of intense and repetitive, and almost, it felt at times almost kind of dreamlike in its sort of feel, as these unstoppable astronaut or spacesuited people are just walking towards you and touch you and boom, you're dead from all the sort of radiation or whatever it is that they've got that's causing that to happen. I thought that theme fit really, really well, and there's just some really nice stings in there as well that are just building up the tension and the shock of it. And also an interesting thing I sort of realised during the making of the documentary was Michael Ferguson, the director, talking about the use of the sting in the theme tune at the end of the story. Obviously there's that intriguing thing at the start where we have the ambassadors of zzz, a nice big sting when death comes on screen, which is a little bit unusual, and is obviously only a one-off for this story. But at the end of the story, having a sudden moment happen, and then suddenly the sting comes in at the beginning of the closing theme, which we haven't really seen so much of in previous episodes. This is where it started to become a more popular choice to use to really give a dramatic sort of bang moment. This is the end of the episode, sort of something shocking happens and then sting, and then it's a theme tune. I think it just sets the tone for the next sort of 40-50 years of Doctor Who in the way they do cliffhangers, which is really sort of, I'd never realised that before, that this is very much the beginning of the sort of the stereotypical Doctor Who cliffhanger, and the way the music is used as well. So it's a little musical thing that I noted. And so yes, this feels like a proper 7-part classic, exciting throughout, thrilling, action-packed story that doesn't really feel like it slows down at any point, as far as I felt. You were always a few minutes away from another revelation, another big moment happening, another nice action scene, another person getting killed. Frankly, there's a lot of deaths in this story, particularly from the unit soldiers, who are just particularly disposable, it feels like. Well, in a lot of Doctor Who, but particularly in this story. So overall, I think it's probably my favourite story so far from at least the Pertwee era, maybe overall sort of so far in this marathon. It really just clicks in every single way with me, I think. But what about you guys? What do you think about this story? Do you think it is as good as I think it is? Do you think it's a bit more messy in places and isn't quite your cup of tea so much? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But other than that, guys, do remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another one, of course. Goodbye.